The morning sun was just breaking through the clouds when Flight 847 began boarding at Gate 23. Inside the airplane, the first-class cabin looked clean and ready. The leather seats were a deep blue color. Small pillows sat on each seat. Everything was in its place. Jennifer Collins walked through the cabin one more time. She had been a flight attendant for 8 years. She worked in first class because she thought she was good at her job. Jennifer believed she could tell who belonged in first class just by looking at them. She looked at the expensive suits, the designer bags, the gold watches. These things told her who was important. Jennifer checked her hair in the small mirror near the galley. She smoothed down her uniform. Today would be like any other day, she thought. She would serve drinks to business people and rich travelers. They would thank her. Some would tip her. Everything would be normal. The boarding announcement came over the speaker. First-class passengers could board now. Jennifer stood near the entrance with a bright smile. She greeted each passenger as they came in. "Good morning. Welcome aboard," she said to a man in a dark suit. "Good morning," she said to a woman wearing pearls. Each passenger looked exactly like she expected. They carried leather bags. They wore expensive clothes. They walked with confidence. Jennifer nodded to herself. These were her kind of passengers. Then she saw him. A man walked down the jetway toward the plane. He looked different from the others. He wore a gray hoodie that had seen better days. His jeans were simple and plain. On his back, he carried an old backpack that looked like it came from a regular store. His sneakers were clean, but nothing special. Jennifer's smile became smaller. She watched him come closer. What was he doing in the first-class line? Maybe he was confused. Maybe he had the wrong boarding group. She had seen this before. Sometimes people tried to sneak into first class. They hoped no one would notice. The man reached the door of the plane. He smiled at Jennifer. It was a kind smile, warm and genuine. "Good morning," he said quietly. "Good morning," Jennifer replied. Her voice was different now. It was not as friendly. "May I see your boarding pass?" The man pulled out his phone. He showed her the digital boarding pass on his screen. Jennifer looked at it carefully. Seat 2A, first class. The pass was real. Her eyes narrowed just a little. She scanned his pass with her device. It beeped. Everything checked out. The man was really supposed to be in first class. "Thank you," she said. But her voice was cold now. She watched him walk to his seat. The man moved down the aisle. He did not seem to notice Jennifer's change in attitude. He found seat 2A by the window. He lifted his backpack into the overhead bin. Then he sat down and pulled out his phone. Jennifer whispered to her colleague David, another flight attendant. David was younger and had only been working for 2 years. "Did you see that guy in 2A? Jennifer said quietly. David glanced over. "What about him?" "Look at how he's dressed." "A hoodie in first class." Jennifer shook her head. "I don't know how some people afford these seats." David looked uncomfortable. He did not say anything. He had learned that Jennifer sometimes said things that made him feel bad. He usually just tried to ignore it. More passengers boarded. Jennifer went back to her job. But she kept looking at the man in seat 2A. He sat quietly, looking at his phone. He was not bothering anyone. He was not doing anything wrong. But something about him bothered Jennifer. She could not understand it. Everyone else in first class looked right. The woman in 1B wore a business suit. The man in 3C had a Rolex watch. The couple in row 4 carried designer luggage. But the man in 2A looked like he belonged in the back of the plane, not in first class. What Jennifer did not know was very important. The man in seat 2A was not just any passenger. His name was known in business newspapers and magazines. He had built a technology company from nothing. That company was now worth more than $3 billion. He was one of the richest men in the country, but he did not like to show it. He did not wear fancy clothes when he traveled. He did not carry expensive bags. He did not want people to recognize him. When people knew who he was, they treated him differently. They wanted things from him. They asked for money or business advice. They took pictures. They bothered him. So when he flew, he dressed like a regular person. He wanted to be left alone. He wanted to work on his laptop in peace. He wanted to think about his next business project. The hoodie and jeans helped him blend in. Or so he thought. He had experienced this before, though. Many times. People looked at him and made assumptions. They saw his skin color. They saw his casual clothes. They decided he did not belong in nice places. He had learned to stay calm when it happened. Getting angry did not help. Arguing did not change minds, but it still hurt. Every single time it hurt. The man looked out the window at the airport workers below. They were loading luggage onto the plane. He took a deep breath. This was just another flight. He would get through it like he always did. Jennifer finished helping the last passengers find their seats. She closed the overhead bins. Then she went to check on first class one more time. She stopped at each row. "Can I get you anything before we take off?" she asked the woman in 1B. "Would you like a drink?" she asked the man in 3C. Then she came to row 2. She looked at the man by the window. Her expression changed. Her smile disappeared. "Do you need anything?" she asked. Her voice was flat. "Just some water, please," the man said politely. "When you have a moment." "Fine," Jennifer said. She did not say of course or right away like she had said to the other passengers. She just said fine and walked away. The man noticed. Of course he noticed. But he said nothing. He turned back to his phone. Above him, a small camera was mounted in the ceiling. It was part of the airplane's security system. The camera recorded everything that happened in the cabin. Every movement, every interaction, every word spoken loud enough to hear. The camera did not care about skin color or clothing. It did not make judgments. It just recorded the truth, and the truth was about to become very important. Jennifer brought a small bottle of water. She placed it on the man's tray table without a word. She did not open it for him like she had done for other passengers. She did not offer a glass with ice. She just put down the bottle and walked away. The man opened the water himself. He took a sip. Then he pulled out his laptop from his backpack. He had work to do. He opened a document and began to type. Jennifer watched him from the galley. She crossed her arms. She did not understand why this bothered her so much, but it did. She felt like something was wrong. She felt like he did not belong there. She was right that something was wrong, but it was not what she thought. The problem was not the passenger in seat 2A. The problem was the thoughts in her own mind. The problem was the way she treated people based on how they looked, and soon everyone would know about it. The plane pushed back from the gate. The captain's voice came through the speakers. He talked about the weather and the flight time. 3 hours to their destination. The man in seat 2A barely listened. He had taken this flight many times before. Jennifer walked through the cabin doing her safety checks. She smiled at passengers in rows 1, 3, 4, and 5. But when she passed row 2, her face became blank. She did not look at the man. She acted like he was not there. The plane took off smoothly. Soon they reached cruising altitude. The seatbelt sign turned off. Jennifer and David began preparing drinks and snacks for the first-class passengers. In the galley, Jennifer pulled out glasses and napkins. She arranged everything on a small cart. David was getting ice from the container. "I still can't believe that guy in 2A, Jennifer said. She kept her voice low, but not low enough. "Look at him. He looks like he just rolled out of bed." David glanced toward row 2. "Maybe he just likes to be comfortable when he flies." Jennifer laughed. It was not a nice laugh. Comfortable? In first class? These seats cost thousands of dollars. He probably saved up for months just to afford this one flight. "Maybe we should just do our job," David said quietly. He did not like where this conversation was going. "I am doing my job," Jennifer said. Her voice had an edge to it now. "I'm just saying you can tell when people don't really belong somewhere. I've been doing this long enough to know." She pushed the cart out of the galley. David followed with another cart. They started at row 1. "Good morning. What can I get for you?" Jennifer's voice was bright and cheerful. She spoke to the woman in the business suit. The woman ordered orange juice. Jennifer poured it carefully. She placed it on a napkin. She made sure everything looked perfect. At row 3, she was just as friendly. "And for you, sir?" The man with the Rolex ordered coffee. Jennifer made it exactly how he liked it. She even brought him extra cream without being asked. Then she reached row 2. The man looked up from his laptop. "Could I have some coffee, please?" "Black is fine." Jennifer stared at him for a moment. "Coffee," she repeated slowly. She said it like she was talking to someone who might not understand. Her voice was too loud, too careful with each word. "Yes, please," the man said. His voice stayed calm and polite. Jennifer poured the coffee. She did not take her time like she had with the other passengers. She filled the cup quickly. Some coffee splashed over the side. She put the cup down on his tray table harder than necessary. The liquid inside swished dangerously close to spilling. "There," she said. "No, enjoy or let me know if you need anything else. Just there." The man looked at the cup. Coffee had dripped down the side. It made a small puddle on the tray table. "Thank you," he said anyway. He pulled a napkin from his pocket to wipe up the mess. Jennifer had already moved on. She went to the next row with her bright smile back in place, but she was not done. As she walked back to the galley, she leaned close to David. "Did you see that?" He probably never had real coffee before. Probably drinks instant at home. David's face turned red. "Jennifer, please stop." "What?" "I'm not saying it to him," Jennifer said. "I'm just talking to you, but other passengers can hear you," David whispered. He nodded toward the seats around them. A few people were looking their way. Jennifer waved her hand like she was brushing away a fly. They're not paying attention, but they were. The elderly woman across the aisle from row 2 had heard everything. She frowned deeply. She did not like what she was hearing. She looked at the man in seat 2A with sympathy in her eyes. The man kept his head down. He focused on his laptop screen. His fingers moved across the keyboard. He was typing an email to his company's chief financial officer. The email was about a deal worth $50 million, but Jennifer would never know that. 30 minutes passed. The man pressed his call button. The light above his seat turned on. Jennifer saw it. She sighed loudly. She did not try to hide it. David heard her sigh from across the cabin. "What now?" Jennifer muttered. She walked slowly to row 2. "Yes?" she asked. Her tone made the word sound like an accusation. "Could I get some more water, please?" the man asked. He held up his empty bottle. "More water," Jennifer said. Again, she spoke too slowly and too loudly. Like he was asking for something complicated. "Yes, if it's not too much trouble." "It's not trouble," Jennifer said. But everything about her body language said it was trouble. Her shoulders were tight. Her jaw was clenched. She walked back to the galley like she was walking through mud. She grabbed another water bottle. She did not take a glass. She did not get ice even though ice was right there. She just grabbed the bottle. When she returned to row 2, she practically threw the bottle onto his tray table. It landed with a thud. This time the man's coffee cup shook. A few drops spilled onto his laptop keyboard. The man quickly moved his laptop away. He grabbed napkins to wipe the keyboard. "Please be careful," he said quietly. "I am being careful," Jennifer snapped. Then her voice changed. It became sweet, but in a fake way. "I'm sure someone like you is used to much worse service. This is probably the nicest flight you've ever been on." The man stopped wiping his keyboard. He looked up at Jennifer. His eyes met hers. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "Excuse me?" he said softly. "Nothing," Jennifer said with that fake smile. "Enjoy your water." She turned and walked away quickly. The elderly woman across the aisle had seen the whole thing. She shook her head in disgust. This was not right. This was not how you treated another human being. A businessman in seat 1C had been watching too. He was reading a newspaper, but he kept glancing at row 2. He had noticed Jennifer's behavior from the beginning. At first he thought maybe he was imagining it, but no. The difference in how she treated this one passenger was clear. The man in seat 2A took a long drink of water. His hand was steady, but inside he felt tired. So tired of this. He had more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. He employed over 5,000 people. His company had changed how people used technology. But none of that mattered when people looked at him and saw only his skin color and his clothes. He thought about saying something. He thought about calling for a supervisor, but he had learned that fighting in the moment rarely helped. It usually just made things worse. People got defensive. They denied everything. They made him feel like he was being too sensitive, so he stayed quiet. He went back to his work. He answered emails. He reviewed documents. He tried to ignore the way Jennifer looked at him every time she walked past. But Jennifer was not finished. She seemed to grow bolder as the flight went on. Maybe she thought no one was really paying attention. Maybe she thought the man would not complain. Maybe she just did not care anymore. She walked past row 2 several times. Each time she made a comment to David. Her voice was just loud enough to hear. Some people really try to act like they belong places. I bet he complained. Until the airline gave him an upgrade. You can dress however you want. But you can't hide where you come from. David stopped responding. He felt sick to his stomach. He knew this was wrong. But Jennifer was senior to him. She had been there longer. He did not know how to make her stop. The elderly woman finally had enough. She pressed her call button. David rushed over, grateful for the distraction. "Yes, ma'am? How can I help you?" "Young man," the woman said quietly, "I want you to know that I am watching how that other flight attendant is treating the gentleman in 2A. It is disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful." David's face went pale. I'm sorry, ma'am. I will speak with her." "You do that," the woman said, "because if this continues, I will be filing a formal complaint. And I suggest you document what you've seen as well." David nodded. He walked back to the galley. His heart was pounding. He knew he should have said something earlier. He should have stopped Jennifer from the beginning. Jennifer was preparing more drinks. She was humming to herself, completely unaware that her behavior had been noticed by multiple passengers. "Jennifer," David said, "we need to talk." "About what?" she asked without looking at him. "About your treatment of the passenger in 2A. People are noticing. People are upset." Jennifer finally turned to look at him. "Oh, please. I'm just doing my job. If people don't like it, that's their problem." "No," David said. His voice was stronger now. "It's going to be your problem. That lady across the aisle is talking about filing a complaint." For the first time, Jennifer looked worried. "A complaint for what?" "I haven't done anything wrong, haven't you?" David asked. Jennifer's face flushed red, but instead of apologizing, she got angry. "Mind your own business, David. I know how to do my job." She pushed past him and walked back into the cabin. But now she was more careful. She stopped making comments out loud. But her face still showed her feelings every time she looked at row 2. High above them all, the security camera continued recording. Every word, every gesture, every moment of disrespect. The camera saw everything. And soon the whole world would see it too. 2 hours into the flight, the cabin felt tense. The man in seat 2A had not pressed his call button again. He did not want any more interactions with Jennifer. He just wanted the flight to be over. But Jennifer would not let it go. Something about this passenger bothered her deeply. She could not stop thinking about it. Every time she looked at him, she felt annoyed. She kept finding reasons to walk past his row. The lunch service began. First-class passengers received proper meals with real plates and silverware. David pushed the meal cart while Jennifer followed with drinks. At each row, Jennifer made polite conversation. She asked passengers how they were enjoying their flight. She smiled and laughed at their jokes. She made recommendations about the meal choices. She was friendly and professional, until she reached row 2. "Lunch," Jennifer announced flatly. She did not ask if he was hungry. She did not describe the meal options. She just said lunch like it was an inconvenience. The man looked up from his laptop. "What are the options today?" Jennifer sighed. She picked up 2 meal boxes and held them up. "Chicken or pasta?" She said it fast, like she was in a hurry. "The chicken, please," the man said. Jennifer dropped the meal box onto his tray table. The box landed with a thud. Inside, the food shifted. The man could hear something liquid moving around. Probably the sauce had spilled. "And to drink?" Jennifer asked. She was already looking past him, ready to move on. "Just water is fine." She grabbed a bottle of water and set it down. No glass, no ice. Just the plastic bottle. Meanwhile, every other first-class passenger had received their drinks in proper glasses with ice and a lemon wedge. The man noticed. Of course he noticed. But he said nothing. He opened his meal box. As he suspected, the sauce from the chicken had spilled all over. It had leaked onto the rice and vegetables. The meal looked messy, but it was still edible. He began to eat quietly. He had learned long ago not to complain. Complaining often made these situations worse. Jennifer and David moved to the next row. The businessman in seat 1C ordered pasta. Jennifer served him with care. She opened his meal box for him. She arranged his silverware. She poured his wine into a proper glass. She asked if he needed anything else. She was the perfect flight attendant. The contrast was impossible to miss. The businessman watched Jennifer serve the man in 2A, then watched her serve him. The difference was night and day. He shook his head slowly. This was not right. After the meal service, passengers settled in for the rest of the flight. Some read books. Some watched movies on the seat screens. Some slept. The cabin became quiet and peaceful. The man in seat 2A was working again. He had a video call scheduled with his team in 20 minutes. He needed to connect to the airplane's Wi-Fi. He pressed his call button. The light above his seat turned on. Jennifer saw it from the galley. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath like she was gathering patience. Then she walked slowly to row 2. Yes? She asked. Her arms were crossed over her chest. I need to connect to the Wi-Fi. Could you tell me the network code? The code is on the screen, Jennifer said. She pointed to the entertainment screen in front of him. The man looked at the screen. I don't see it there. Could you help me find it? Jennifer's jaw tightened. It should be there. Maybe you're not looking hard enough. I've checked several times, the man said. His voice remained calm and patient. I really do need to get online for work. If you could just tell me the code, I would appreciate it. Everyone else figured it out, Jennifer said. She said it loud enough that several nearby passengers turned to look. The elderly woman across the aisle made a disgusted sound. She had been watching this treatment continue for 2 hours now. She pulled out her phone and began typing notes about what she was witnessing. The man in seat 2A felt his face grow warm. He was being humiliated in front of the entire cabin. But he kept his voice steady. I understand, but I still need the code. Please. Jennifer let out a long, dramatic sigh. She pulled out her phone and looked up the Wi-Fi code. Then she showed him the screen for only a second before pulling it away. There, did you get it? Could you show me again? I didn't have time to write it down. Fine. Jennifer showed him the phone again, even quicker this time. Then she walked away before he could ask again. The man sat there for a moment. He had not been able to see the code either time. She had moved too fast on purpose, he knew it. Everyone watching knew it. The businessman in 1C had seen enough. He stood up and walked to the galley where Jennifer was standing with David. Excuse me, the businessman said. His voice was calm but firm. I need to speak with you. He was looking at Jennifer. Yes, sir. How can I help you? Jennifer asked with her fake sweet voice. Privately, please. The businessman gestured toward the back of the first-class cabin, away from the other passengers. Jennifer followed him, looking confused. David watched them go, a worried expression on his face. When they were far enough away, the businessman spoke quietly but seriously. I have been watching your treatment of the passenger in seat 2A for this entire flight. Your behavior is completely unacceptable. Jennifer's face showed surprise, then anger. I don't know what you mean. I'm treating everyone the same. No, you're not, the businessman said. I've watched you serve everyone in this cabin. You are friendly and helpful to every single passenger except him. You are cold, dismissive, and openly rude to that man. Why? I'm just doing my job, Jennifer said. Her voice was defensive now. Really? Is dropping meal boxes onto passengers' tables part of your job? Is refusing to help with Wi-Fi codes part of your job? Is making loud comments about passengers part of your job? Jennifer's face turned red. You're reading too much into this. I'm just busy. I can't give special attention to every single person. I'm not asking for special attention, the businessman said. I'm asking for basic respect. The same respect you show everyone else. And we both know why you're treating him differently. What are you trying to say? Jennifer asked. Her voice was sharp now. The businessman looked her in the eyes. I'm saying that your treatment of that passenger appears to be based on the color of his skin and how he's dressed. And that is discrimination, pure and simple. That's ridiculous, Jennifer said, but her voice shook slightly. Is it? Because I've been taking notes on my phone about everything I've witnessed, including timestamps, and I will be filing a formal complaint when we land. Jennifer's confident expression started to crack. That's your choice. But I haven't done anything wrong. Then you have nothing to worry about, the businessman said. But I think you should know something. That man you've been treating so poorly, I recognize him. I saw him in a business magazine last month. He runs a major technology company. He's worth billions of dollars. Jennifer's face went pale. What? Not that it should matter, the businessman continued. You should treat every passenger with respect, regardless of their wealth. But I thought you might want to know just how wrong your assumptions were. Jennifer tried to laugh, but it came out wrong. That's impossible. Look at him. He's wearing a hoodie. Rich people wear hoodies too, the businessman said. But again, that's beside the point. The point is your behavior. I suggest you think carefully about how you treat people. Because this complaint is going to your supervisors, and I won't be the only one filing one. He walked back to his seat, leaving Jennifer standing alone. Her hands were shaking now. Could that man really be a billionaire? No, the businessman was just trying to scare her. Rich people didn't dress like that. Rich people didn't fly without security or assistance. But a small part of her brain started to worry. What if it was true? Jennifer returned to the galley. David looked at her questioningly. What did he want? David asked. Nothing, Jennifer said quickly. Just nothing. But her behavior changed after that conversation. She stopped walking past row 2. She stayed in the galley as much as possible. She avoided looking at the man entirely. The man in seat 2A finally got the Wi-Fi code from David, who apologized quietly as he gave it. The man thanked David genuinely. He did not blame David for Jennifer's behavior. The man connected to Wi-Fi and joined his video call. On the screen, 6 of his company's top executives appeared. They were in a conference room at headquarters. Sorry I'm late getting on, the man said. I had some trouble with the connection. No problem, one of the executives said. We're just getting started. Before we begin, I wanted to mention that the stock price hit a new high today, up another 5%. The shareholders are very happy. The man smiled. That's excellent news. Great work, everyone. They spent the next hour discussing business strategy. They talked about new products. They reviewed financial projections. They made decisions that would affect thousands of employees and millions of customers. And the whole time Jennifer had no idea. She had no idea that the man she had been mocking and dismissing was making decisions worth hundreds of millions of dollars. She had no idea that he controlled more wealth than she could imagine. She had no idea that her behavior was being recorded by security cameras from multiple angles. She had no idea that her life was about to change forever. The flight began its descent. The captain announced they would be landing soon. Passengers started putting away their laptops and books. They folded up their tray tables. They prepared for arrival. The plane emptied slowly. Passengers gathered their bags from the overhead bins. They said goodbye to the flight crew. They walked up the jetway toward the airport terminal. The businessman from seat 1C was the last to leave first class. He had purposely waited. When he reached the front of the plane, he stopped in front of Jennifer. I need your name, he said. His voice was polite but serious. Jennifer felt her stomach drop. My name? Yes, for the complaint I'm filing. I need your full name and employee identification number if possible. Jennifer's hands began to shake. Sir, I really don't think that's necessary. I disagree, the businessman said. What happened on this flight was wrong. Very wrong. And your supervisors need to know about it. David was standing nearby. He had been cleaning up the galley, but he stopped to listen. He knew this conversation was important. What's your name, please? The businessman asked again. Jennifer Collins, she said quietly. Her voice had lost all its confidence. And your employee number? Jennifer told him. The businessman typed everything into his phone. Thank you. I want to be sure the airline knows exactly who I'm talking about. Please, Jennifer said. I was just having a bad day. I didn't mean anything by it. The businessman looked at her carefully. You weren't having a bad day. You were having a bad day only with one specific passenger. You were perfectly pleasant to everyone else, including me. That's not a bad day. That's discrimination. I wasn't discriminating, Jennifer said. But she said it weakly. She knew how it looked. Then how do you explain your behavior? The businessman asked. Jennifer did not have an answer. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. That's what I thought, the businessman said. Someone once told me that you can judge a person's character by how they treat people who can do nothing for them. That passenger in 2A couldn't do anything for you. He wasn't going to give you a big tip or write a nice review or get you promoted, so you treated him like he didn't matter. That says a lot about who you are. He picked up his bag and walked off the plane. Jennifer stood there, feeling frozen. David came over to her. Jennifer, David said softly. He's right. What you did today was wrong. Not you too, Jennifer said. She sounded tired now. I should have said something earlier, David admitted. I should have stopped you. But I was scared. You're senior to me. I didn't know what to do. But that doesn't make what happened okay. Jennifer sat down in one of the seats. The plane was empty now except for her and David. The cleaning crew would arrive soon. Do you really think he'll complain? Jennifer asked. Yes, David said. And so will that elderly lady. She told me she was going to. She was really upset about what she saw. Jennifer put her face in her hands. I just don't understand what I did that was so terrible. I served him food. I got him drinks. I did my job, Jennifer, David said. He sat down across the aisle from her. Do you really not see it? Or are you just pretending not to? See what? You treated that man completely differently than everyone else. You were rude to him. You rolled your eyes at him. You made comments about him. You threw his food and drinks down. You refused to help him with the Wi-Fi. I was just busy, Jennifer said. No, you weren't, David said firmly. You had time to be nice to everyone else. You chose not to be nice to him. And we both know why. Jennifer looked up at David. You think I'm racist? David sighed. I think you made assumptions about that passenger based on how he looked. You decided he didn't belong in first class because of his clothes and his skin color. Whether you want to call that racism or not, it was wrong. It was hurtful. And now you're going to face consequences for it. But I'm not a bad person, Jennifer said. Tears started forming in her eyes. Maybe you're not, David said. But you did a bad thing today. Actually, you did many bad things. And that passenger deserved better. Every passenger deserves better. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, airport workers moved around the plane. Life at the airport continued normally. But inside the plane, nothing felt normal anymore. What do I do now? Jennifer asked. I don't know, David said honestly. Wait and see if anyone complains, I guess. Maybe nothing will happen. But David knew that was unlikely. He had seen the determination on the businessman's face. He had heard the disgust in the elderly woman's voice. And there had been other passengers watching too. The couple in row 4 had noticed. The woman in 1B had given Jennifer strange looks throughout the flight. This was not going to just go away. Jennifer and David finally left the plane. They walked through the airport to the employee area. They changed out of their uniforms. Neither of them talked much. See you next week, David said as they parted ways. Yeah, Jennifer said. See you. She walked to her car in the employee parking lot. She sat in the driver's seat for a long time before starting the engine. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from her supervisor. Need to see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Office meeting. Jennifer's heart sank. That was fast. Way too fast. The flight had landed less than an hour ago. How could her supervisor already know? She typed back, Is everything okay? The response came quickly. We'll talk tomorrow. Jennifer drove home in a daze. She kept replaying the flight in her mind. Had she really been that bad? Maybe she had been a little cold to that passenger. But people were too sensitive these days. Everyone got offended by everything, except deep down Jennifer knew that wasn't true. She knew what she had done. She just didn't want to admit it. At home, Jennifer tried to relax. She made dinner. She watched television, but she couldn't focus. She kept thinking about that meeting tomorrow. What would her supervisor say? Would she get in trouble? Would she get fired? No, she wouldn't get fired. She had been there for 8 years. She was a good employee. Everyone made mistakes. This would blow over, but the worried feeling in her stomach wouldn't go away. The next morning, Jennifer arrived at the airline's office building. She signed in at the front desk. She took the elevator to the 5th floor. Her hands were sweating. Her supervisor's name was Patricia. She had worked for the airline for 20 years. She was fair but strict. Jennifer had always gotten along with her. Jennifer knocked on Patricia's office door. Come in, Patricia called. Jennifer opened the door. Patricia was sitting at her desk looking at her computer screen. Her face was serious. Sit down, Jennifer, Patricia said. Jennifer sat. She tried to smile. Good morning. Jennifer, I'm going to get right to the point, Patricia said. We received 3 formal complaints yesterday about your behavior on Flight 847. All 3 complaints are about the same thing. About how you treated a specific passenger. 3 complaints. Jennifer's heart pounded. The businessman, the elderly woman, and who else? I don't know what they're talking about, Jennifer said. I treated everyone professionally. Patricia turned her computer screen so Jennifer could see it. On the screen was a frozen image from the airplane's security camera. It showed Jennifer dropping the meal box onto the passenger's tray table. Her face showed clear annoyance and disrespect. Does this look professional to you? Patricia asked. Jennifer stared at the screen. She had forgotten about the security cameras. She had completely forgotten. That doesn't show the whole story, Jennifer said weakly. Actually, it does, Patricia said. I've watched 2 hours of footage from that flight. I've seen everything, Jennifer. Every eye roll. Every rude comment. Every time you treated that passenger differently than the others. It's all on camera. Jennifer felt sick. This was really happening. We also have detailed written statements from 3 passengers, Patricia continued. They all described the same pattern of behavior. Discrimination based on appearance and race. I wasn't discriminating, Jennifer protested. I would never do that. Then explain to me what I saw on that video, Patricia said. Explain to me why you were warm and friendly to every passenger except one. Explain to me why that one passenger happened to be the only black man in first class. Jennifer couldn't explain it.
Or she could, but the truth made her sound terrible.
He didn't look like he belonged in first class, Jennifer finally admitted. Patricia closed her eyes and shook her head. Jennifer, do you hear yourself? You're saying that someone didn't belong in first class because of how they looked. That's not what I meant, Jennifer said quickly. Then what did you mean? Jennifer didn't answer. She couldn't. Do you know who that passenger was? Patricia asked. Someone said he was rich, but I don't believe that. Patricia typed something on her computer. Then she turned the screen to show Jennifer again. This time it showed a news article. The headline read, Tech CEO donates $100 million to education programs. The photo showed the man from seat 2A, but in the photo, he was wearing a suit. He was standing on a stage shaking hands with the governor. He looked confident and successful. His company is worth over $3 billion, Patricia said. He employs 5,000 people. He's one of the most respected businessmen in the technology industry. And you treated him like garbage because you didn't think he looked rich enough. Jennifer felt like she might throw up. I didn't know. You shouldn't have to know, Patricia said. Her voice was sharp now. Every passenger deserves respect, whether they're a billionaire or not. Whether they wear a suit or a hoodie, whether they're white or black, that's basic human decency. That's airline policy. That's the law. What happens now? Jennifer asked quietly. We're opening a formal investigation, Patricia said. You're suspended without pay, effective immediately. Human Resources will be contacting you with more information. You'll need to attend a hearing where you can tell your side of the story. Am I going to be fired? Jennifer asked. Her voice cracked. I can't answer that yet, Patricia said. That will be decided after the investigation. But I'll be honest with you, Jennifer. This is serious. Very serious. We have video evidence. We have multiple witness statements. We have clear proof of discriminatory behavior. And now there's a risk that this could become public. If the media finds out that one of our flight attendants treated a prominent businessman this way, it could damage the airline's reputation significantly. Jennifer started crying. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Patricia's expression softened just slightly. I believe you didn't mean for it to happen, but intention doesn't erase impact. That passenger was humiliated on your flight. He was treated as less than human. And you did that. You made him feel that way. Jennifer cried harder. Everything was falling apart. Her job, her reputation, her whole life. You need to leave now, Patricia said. Human Resources will be in touch within 48 hours. Please surrender your airline ID and uniform items to security on your way out. Jennifer stood up slowly. She could barely see through her tears. She walked out of Patricia's office and down the hall to security. She handed over her ID badge and the extra uniform pieces she kept in her locker. Then she left the building and sat in her car. She cried for a long time. How had everything gone so wrong so fast? But deep in her heart, Jennifer knew the answer. She had been wrong. She had been cruel. She had let her assumptions and prejudices guide her actions. And now she was paying the price. The man from seat 2A walked through the airport terminal. He pulled his small rolling suitcase behind him. His backpack hung over one shoulder. To anyone watching, he looked like a regular traveler. Nobody recognized him. Nobody asked for autographs or selfies. That was exactly how he wanted it. He found his driver waiting near baggage claim. The driver was an older man named Thomas who had worked for him for 5 years. Thomas knew not to make a big fuss when they were in public. Good flight, sir? Thomas asked quietly as he took the suitcase. Not particularly, the man said. He didn't elaborate. He didn't want to talk about it. They walked to the car in silence. Once they were inside with the doors closed, Thomas spoke again. Everything all right? The man sighed. Just another flight. Same old story, Thomas nodded. He understood. Over the years, he had witnessed people underestimate his boss many times. He had seen people be rude to him in restaurants, stores, and hotels. It always made Thomas angry, but his boss usually stayed calm. Where to? Thomas asked. Office or hotel? Hotel. I need a shower and some rest before tonight's conference. As they drove, the man checked his emails on his phone. There were dozens of messages. Updates from his team. Questions from board members. Interview requests from journalists. His life was always busy. He ran a company that never slept, but his mind kept drifting back to the flight. To Jennifer's cold voice and cruel comments. To the way she had treated him like he was worthless. He had experienced worse in his life. Much worse. But it still hurt. Every single time it hurt. At his hotel, the man checked in and went to his room. It was a nice suite on the top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the city. He dropped his bags and sat on the edge of the bed. He thought about filing a complaint. He had every right to. What Jennifer had done was clearly wrong. It was discrimination. It was unprofessional. It was hurtful. But would it make a difference? Would the airline care? Or would they just apologize and do nothing? He had filed complaints before at other companies. Sometimes they took it seriously. Sometimes they didn't. He decided he wouldn't file a complaint this time. He was tired of fighting these battles. He just wanted to focus on his work. On his conference speech tonight. On his company's next product launch. On things he could control. He didn't know that he didn't need to file a complaint. Other people were already doing it for him. At the airport, the businessman from Seat 1C sat at a gate waiting for his connecting flight. He had his laptop open. He was filling out the airline's complaint form online. He wrote everything down in detail. He included the flight number and date. He included Jennifer's full name and employee number. He described what he had witnessed from the moment boarding began until the plane landed. He wrote about the different tone Jennifer used with the passenger in 2A. He wrote about the meal service. He wrote about the Wi-Fi incident. He wrote about the comments she made to her colleague. He included approximate times for each incident so the airline could review the security footage. At the end of the form he wrote, I have flown with your airline for over 15 years. I have always been treated with respect and professionalism. But what I witnessed on this flight was shocking and unacceptable. This was clear discrimination based on race and appearance. If this is how your airline treats passengers, I will need to reconsider my loyalty to your company. This employee should face serious consequences for her behavior. He hit submit. The form went directly to the airline's customer relations department. Somewhere else in the airport, the elderly woman from the flight was also filling out a complaint form. She was using her phone, typing slowly with her thumbs. It took her a long time, but she was determined to finish it. She described what she had seen and heard. She wrote about how uncomfortable and angry it had made her. She wrote, I am 72 years old. I have seen a lot of discrimination in my life. I had hoped we were past this. But what I witnessed on your flight showed me we still have a long way to go. That poor man was treated terribly for no reason except how he looked. The flight attendant should be ashamed of herself. And your airline should be ashamed if you don't take action. She submitted her complaint and felt satisfied that she had done the right thing. The couple from row 4 also filed a complaint. They worked together on it, each one remembering details the other had forgotten. They submitted their form before their next flight. Even 2 other passengers who had witnessed parts of the interaction sent in complaints. 5 complaints in total, all about the same flight, all about the same flight attendant, all describing the same behavior. The complaints arrived in the customer relations department within hours of the flight landing. They appeared in the system as a cluster of red flags. The customer relations manager, a woman named Sandra, saw them come in. Sandra had worked in customer relations for 10 years. She had seen thousands of complaints. Most of them were about delays or lost luggage or uncomfortable seats. Those were easy to handle. Apologize, offer some miles, move on. But discrimination complaints were different. They were serious. They required immediate attention. And 5 complaints about 1 employee on 1 flight? That was extremely unusual. Sandra read through all 5 complaints carefully. Her concern grew with each one. The stories all matched. They all described the same pattern of behavior. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't someone having a bad day. This was systematic mistreatment of a passenger. Sandra checked the complaint system. She wanted to see if there were any previous complaints about Jennifer Collins. She found 2, both from over a year ago. Both described similar behavior. Both had been marked as resolved with verbal warning. Sandra shook her head. This employee had been warned before. She hadn't changed her behavior. Now it had escalated to the point where 5 different passengers felt the need to complain. Sandra did something she rarely did. She requested the security camera footage from the flight. Usually footage was only reviewed for serious incidents like fights or medical emergencies. But with 5 complaints all describing the same thing, she needed to see it with her own eyes. The footage took a few hours to arrive. When it did, Sandra sat at her desk with her office door closed. She watched the entire flight from multiple camera angles. She started with the boarding process and watched all the way through to landing. What she saw shocked her. The complaints had been accurate. Actually, they had been understated. The video showed even more than the passengers had described. Jennifer's body language alone told the story. The way she smiled at some passengers and frowned at others. The way she took care with some meals and not others. The way she helped some people and ignored others. It was textbook discrimination. And it was all on camera. Sandra paused the video on one particular moment. It showed Jennifer dropping the water bottle onto the passenger's tray table. The passenger's coffee cup wobbled. Liquid spilled onto his laptop. The expression on the passenger's face showed hurt and resignation. Sandra felt angry. How could someone treat another human being this way? She picked up her phone and called her supervisor. We have a serious problem, Sandra said. I need you to watch something. Her supervisor, the director of customer relations, came to Sandra's office. Sandra showed her the complaints and then the video footage. The director watched in silence, her expression growing more concerned with each passing minute. This is bad, the director said. This is really bad. What should we do? Sandra asked. We need to escalate this immediately, to HR and to the executive team. This employee needs to be suspended pending a full investigation, and we need to identify the passenger who was targeted. Sandra pulled up the passenger manifest. She looked for seat 2A. When she saw the name, her face went pale. Oh no, she said quietly. What? The director asked. Sandra turned her computer screen. The passenger in seat 2A, look who it is. The director leaned forward and read the name. Her eyes went wide. Are you serious? Yes, I just Googled him to confirm. It's definitely him. That's him in the security footage. The director sat down heavily in a chair. This just went from bad to catastrophic. Do you know who this man is? Do you know what kind of publicity nightmare this could become? I'm aware, Sandra said. What do we do? The director thought for a moment.
We need to tell the CEO immediately.
Like right now. This is above our authority level. The CEO needs to know that we discriminated against one of the most prominent businessmen in the country. Should we reach out to him? To apologize? Sandra asked. I don't know. That's for the CEO to decide. But we need to move fast on this. Every hour that passes is another hour this could leak to the press. If this becomes a news story before we've handled it properly, we're in serious trouble. The director pulled out her phone and called the CEO's executive assistant. I need to speak with him urgently. It's an emergency. He's in a board meeting, the assistant said. Pull him out. This can't wait. There was a pause. Then the assistant said, hold on. A minute later, the CEO came on the line. This better be important. It is, sir, the director said. We have a major incident. One of our flight attendants discriminated against a passenger. We have video evidence and 5 witness complaints. And sir, the passenger is the CEO of TechVision Enterprises. His company is worth $3 billion. There was a long silence on the other end. Then the CEO said something under his breath that the director couldn't quite hear. Then he said, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Don't do anything until I arrive. Yes, sir. The director hung up. She looked at Sandra. This is going to be a long day. Sandra nodded. That poor man. He didn't deserve any of this. No, he didn't, the director agreed. And now we need to make it right. If we can. 10 minutes later, the CEO arrived. He was a tall man in his 60s with gray hair and a stern expression. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. Show me the footage, he said. Sandra played it for him. The CEO watched without saying a word. His jaw clenched tighter as the video continued. When it finished, he stood up and walked to the window. He looked out at the airport runways for a long moment. 20 years, he finally said. 20 years I've been running this airline. We've built our reputation on treating passengers with dignity and respect. That's our brand. That's what we promise." He turned back to face Sandra and the director. And in one flight, one employee destroyed that promise. She made that man feel unwelcome. She made him feel inferior. She made him feel like he didn't belong on our airline. In our first-class cabin. That's unacceptable. "What would you like us to do, sir?" the director asked. The CEO's voice was firm and clear. "3 things. First, that employee is suspended immediately, effective right now. Full investigation by HR. If the investigation confirms what we've seen, she's terminated. No second chances. She's had warnings before and didn't change. This behavior has no place in our company. Second, we draft a formal apology letter. I'll sign it personally. We send it by private courier to him. We request a meeting so I can apologize face-to-face. We offer whatever compensation is appropriate, though I suspect he doesn't need our money, but we offer it anyway because it's the right thing to do. Third, we implement immediate policy changes. I want mandatory training on bias and discrimination for every employee. I want a review of our complaint process to understand why previous issues with this employee didn't result in stronger action. I want a diversity and inclusion officer appointed to our leadership team. This can't happen again. Ever." "Yes, sir," both women said. "And one more thing," the CEO added. "If this becomes public, we own it. We don't hide. We don't make excuses. We acknowledge what happened. We explain what we're doing about it, and we commit to doing better. Our reputation matters, but doing the right thing matters more." He looked at the frozen image on the screen, the image of the passenger's hurt expression as his coffee spilled on his laptop. That man is someone's son, someone's friend, someone's colleague. He deserved to be treated with respect. Instead, we failed him. Let's make sure we don't fail anyone else. The CEO walked out of the office to make the necessary phone calls. Sandra and the director looked at each other. "He's right," Sandra said. "We failed that passenger. But at least now we're going to make it right," the director said. Or try to. They got to work. There was a lot to do, and time was running out. The airline's headquarters became busy with urgent activity. The CEO called an emergency meeting with his top executives. He gathered the head of human resources, the legal counsel, the director of operations, and the chief communications officer. They met in a large conference room with windows overlooking the city. The CEO stood at the head of the table. His face was serious. He pressed a button and a large screen came to life on the wall. The security footage from Flight 847 began to play. "Watch this carefully," the CEO said. All of it, the executives watched in silence. As the video continued, their expressions changed from confusion to concern to outright shock. When it finished, nobody spoke for a moment. "How did this happen?" the CEO finally asked. "How does someone work for us for 8 years and treat a passenger like this?" Margaret, the head of human resources, spoke first. "Sir, I pulled Jennifer Collins' employee file. She's had 2 previous complaints in the last 18 months. Both were about similar behavior. Different passengers on different flights, but the same pattern." "And what was done about those complaints?" the CEO asked. His voice was sharp. "She received verbal warnings both times, and she was told to attend a customer service training session." "Clearly the training didn't work," the CEO said. "Why wasn't she terminated after the second complaint?" Margaret looked uncomfortable. The previous complaints didn't have video evidence, and there were no multiple witnesses. In both cases, it was one passenger's word against the employee's word. Her supervisor gave her the benefit of the doubt. "Well, now we have 5 passengers' words, and we have video evidence, and we have a very high-profile victim." The CEO turned to his legal counsel. "David, what's our legal exposure here?" David, the legal counsel, adjusted his glasses. "Potentially significant. This is clear discrimination. The passenger could sue for emotional distress, defamation, and violation of civil rights. If he wanted to, he could pursue both criminal and civil charges. The video evidence makes our position very weak." "How much are we talking about?" the CEO asked. "It's hard to say. With a regular passenger, maybe a few $100,000 in a settlement. But this passenger is worth billions. He doesn't need our money. If he decides to make an example out of us, it could cost us tens of millions. Plus, the damage to our reputation could affect stock prices and customer loyalty." The CEO nodded slowly. "And if this becomes a media story?" Jessica, the chief communications officer, spoke up. "It would be devastating. Social media would explode. News outlets would run with it for weeks. We'd become the poster child for corporate discrimination. Our competitors would use it against us. We could lose major corporate contracts. The backlash would be severe. Then we need to get ahead of this, the CEO said. We need to show that we take immediate and serious action. We need to show that this behavior doesn't represent our company values. He turned back to Margaret. I want Jennifer Collins suspended today. Right now. Call her supervisor and make it happen. And I want a full internal investigation completed within 48 hours. Interview every crew member who was on that flight. Get statements from everyone. Yes, sir, Margaret said. She pulled out her phone and stepped out of the room to make the call. The CEO continued. David, I want you to draft a formal apology letter. I'll sign it personally. Make it sincere. No corporate speak. No legal hedging. A real human apology. And include our plan for making sure this never happens again. I'll have it to you by end of day, David said. Jessica, I want you to prepare a crisis communication plan. If this goes public, we need to be ready. We need talking points for me, for customer service, for social media. We own what happened. We explain what we're doing about it. We commit to change. I'll start working on it immediately, Jessica said. The CEO looked around the table. This is a failure at multiple levels. A failure of hiring, a failure of training, a failure of supervision, a failure of culture. One employee did this, yes, but we created the environment that allowed it to happen, and we're going to fix it. Margaret came back into the room. It's done. Jennifer Collins is suspended as of 10 minutes ago. Her supervisor is meeting with her tomorrow morning to inform her officially. Good, the CEO said. Now let's talk about systematic changes. What do we need to do differently? For the next 2 hours, they discussed new policies. They planned mandatory bias training for all employees. They designed a better complaint review process. They talked about hiring a diversity and inclusion officer to join the executive team. They outlined metrics to track improvement. The CEO made notes on everything. He wanted concrete action items. He wanted deadlines. He wanted accountability. I want monthly reports on our progress, he said. I want to know how many employees have completed the training. I want to know how many complaints we receive and how we're handling them. I want to see proof that we're changing. Everyone nodded and took notes. Now, the CEO said, the hardest part? We need to reach out to the passenger. I need to apologize to him personally. Margaret, do we have contact information for him? I can get it from his booking information, Margaret said. Do that. But be discreet. I don't want this to feel like harassment. Draft a brief email asking if he would be willing to speak with me. Make it clear that it's completely optional. If he doesn't want to engage with us, that's his right. I'll send it this afternoon, Margaret said. The CEO stood up. This is our top priority for the next week. Cancel other meetings if you need to. This gets fixed right and it gets fixed fast. Any questions? There were none. The executives understood the seriousness of the situation. As they filed out of the conference room, the CEO stayed behind. He looked at the frozen image on the screen, the image of the passenger looking tired and hurt. The CEO felt genuinely angry about what had happened. But he also felt something else, shame. This happened on his airline. Under his leadership. That made him responsible. He picked up his phone and called his executive assistant. Clear my schedule for tomorrow. I may need to travel to meet with someone. I'll let you know. Yes, sir, his assistant said. Meanwhile, the investigation was beginning. Margaret assembled a team from human resources. They pulled all the records related to Jennifer Collins, her employment application, her performance reviews, her training certificates, her previous complaints. They also identified everyone who had worked on Flight 847. There were 3 other flight attendants besides Jennifer and David. There were 2 pilots. There was a ground crew supervisor who had helped with boarding. Margaret's team began scheduling interviews with all of them. They wanted to know what people had seen, what they had heard, whether Jennifer's behavior was a one-time thing or a pattern. David, the flight attendant who had worked alongside Jennifer, was interviewed first. He sat in a small office with 2 HR representatives. They asked him to describe the flight in detail. David was nervous. He liked his job. He didn't want to get anyone in trouble, but he also knew he needed to tell the truth. Jennifer was different with that one passenger, David said, from the very beginning. When he boarded, she got this look on her face, like she was annoyed that he was there. Did she say anything to you about him? one HR rep asked. David hesitated. Then he nodded. Yes, several times. She made comments about how he was dressed. She said she didn't understand how he could afford first class. She said things like these people and where he comes from. And what did you do when she said these things? David looked down at his hands. Nothing. I didn't say anything. I knew it was wrong, but Jennifer is senior to me. I didn't know how to stop her without causing problems. Did you consider reporting her behavior? I thought about it, David admitted, but I wasn't sure if anyone would believe me. And I was afraid she would make my work life difficult if I reported her. The HR representatives took detailed notes. Did any other crew members witness this behavior? I don't think so. The other flight attendants were in the back of the plane with economy class, and the pilots were in the cockpit. It was mainly just Jennifer and me in first class. They asked David more questions. About the meal service, about the Wi-Fi incident, about the comments Jennifer made. David answered honestly. He felt relieved to finally tell someone what had happened. The other flight attendants were interviewed next. They hadn't seen much because they worked in different sections of the plane, but they had heard things. Jennifer had complained about the passenger from 2A during the crew briefing before the flight ended. She had said something about suspicious passengers and people who don't belong in first class. One flight attendant remembered Jennifer saying, I can always tell when someone doesn't really fit in with the first-class crowd. At the time, it had seemed like a weird comment. Now it made sense. The pilots were interviewed too. They hadn't witnessed any of the incidents. They had been in the cockpit for the entire flight. But they confirmed that Jennifer had mentioned a difficult passenger when she brought them their meals. She said there was someone in first class who was being demanding, one pilot recalled. But she didn't give details. We didn't think much of it at the time. Margaret's team compiled all the interviews into a comprehensive report. The picture that emerged was clear. Jennifer Collins had treated one passenger differently than all others. She had made discriminatory comments. She had provided substandard service based on her personal biases. And it wasn't the first time. The previous complaints showed a pattern. She had received warnings, but she hadn't changed her behavior. In fact, she had gotten worse. Margaret brought the completed report to the CEO. She laid it on his desk. It was thick with documentation, interview transcripts, screenshots from security footage, copies of the 5 passenger complaints, Jennifer's employment history. It's all here, Margaret said. Everything we found. The CEO spent an hour reading through the report. When he finished, he looked up at Margaret. This is exactly what I was afraid of. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This is who she is. This is how she thinks about people. What would you like me to do? Margaret asked. Schedule a disciplinary hearing for 3 days from now. Invite Jennifer and allow her to bring a representative if she wants. Present the evidence. Give her a chance to respond. But unless she has an incredible explanation that we somehow missed, the outcome is clear. She's terminated. I'll set it up, Margaret said. And Margaret, the CEO added, I want you to look into why those previous complaints didn't result in stronger action. I want to know who made the decision to give her just a verbal warning. I want to know if there's a systematic problem with how we handle discrimination complaints. I'll investigate that as well, Margaret promised. After Margaret left, the CEO opened his email. There was a new message from his legal counsel. The subject line read, Draft Apology Letter. The CEO opened it and read, Dear Sir, I am writing to offer my sincerest and most heartfelt apology for the treatment you received on Flight 847. After reviewing security footage and interviewing witnesses, it is clear that you were subjected to discriminatory behavior by one of our employees. This is completely unacceptable and does not represent the values of our airline. You deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, and we failed you. I am personally ashamed that this happened on one of our flights. The CEO made some edits. He removed some of the formal language. He made it more personal, more human. When he was satisfied, he hit send to his assistant. Print this on company letterhead. I'll sign it. Then arrange for a private courier to deliver it tomorrow. Yes, sir, his assistant replied. The CEO leaned back in his chair. He had done everything he could do for now. The investigation was complete. The employee was suspended. The apology letter was written. Policies were being changed, but there was still one big unknown. How would the passenger react? Would he sue? Would he go public with his story? Would he give the airline a chance to make things right? The CEO didn't know. All he could do was wait and hope that the passenger would be willing to listen. In his hotel room across town, the passenger was getting ready for his conference speech. He had no idea that at the airline's headquarters dozens of people were working frantically because of what had happened to him. He checked his appearance in the mirror. Tonight he would be wearing a suit. Tonight he would be recognized and respected. Tonight he would give a speech to 1,000 people who would hang on his every word. But he still felt the sting of this morning's flight. The way Jennifer had looked at him, the way she had spoken to him, the way she had made him feel small. Money couldn't protect him from that. Success couldn't protect him from that. He could be worth $10 billion and it wouldn't matter. Some people would always see him as someone who didn't belong. He straightened his tie and headed downstairs to the conference. He had a speech to give. Tomorrow he would fly home. Hopefully that flight would be better. He had no idea that his next interaction with the airline would be very different from the last one. Jennifer Collins sat in the hearing room at the airline's headquarters. It was 3 days after the flight. 3 days of worry and fear. 3 days of barely sleeping or eating. She had brought a union representative with her, a man named Robert who sat beside her with a thick folder of documents. Across the table sat Margaret from Human Resources and another HR officer. Also present was Patricia, Jennifer's direct supervisor. Everyone looked serious. Margaret opened the meeting. "Thank you for coming, Jennifer. As you know, this hearing is to address complaints we received about your conduct on Flight 847. We've completed our investigation, and we're here to present our findings and give you an opportunity to respond." Jennifer nodded. Her hands were shaking in her lap. Margaret turned on a screen. The security footage began to play. Jennifer watched herself on the video. She saw the way she looked at the passenger, the way she dropped his food, the way she rolled her eyes, the way she spoke to David about him. Watching it from the outside, Jennifer barely recognized herself. She looked mean. She looked cruel. She looked like exactly the kind of person she had always said she would never be. The video played for 20 minutes. When it finished, the room was silent. "We also have statements from 5 passengers," Margaret continued, "all describing the same pattern of behavior. And we have interviews with your colleagues who confirmed that you made discriminatory comments throughout the flight." Margaret slid a copy of the report across the table. Jennifer's representative picked it up and began reading. "Jennifer," Margaret said, "do you have any explanation for your behavior on this flight?" Jennifer opened her mouth, but no words came out at first. What could she say? The evidence was right there on video. There was no denying it. "I was having a bad day," Jennifer finally said. Her voice was weak. "Were you having a bad day with every passenger?" Margaret asked. "Because the video shows you being perfectly professional with everyone except the passenger in seat 2A. Jennifer didn't answer. "Let me ask you directly," Margaret said. "Did you treat that passenger differently because of his race and appearance?" "No," Jennifer said quickly. "I'm not racist." "Then why did you treat him so differently?" Jennifer struggled to find words. He didn't look like he belonged in first class. I thought maybe he had complained to get an upgrade or something. I see it sometimes. People try to take advantage." "So you made an assumption based on how he looked," Margaret said. "I guess so," Jennifer admitted. "Did you know that the passenger you treated so poorly is the CEO of Tech Vision Enterprises? That his company is worth over $3 billion? That he's one of the most successful businessmen in the country?" Jennifer's face went pale. She had heard the rumors but hadn't fully believed them. "I didn't know for sure." "Would it have mattered?" Margaret asked. "Should you only treat people with respect if they're rich?" "No," Jennifer said. "Of course not. But that's exactly what you did. You decided that one passenger didn't deserve the same level of service as others based on your assumptions about him. That's discrimination, Jennifer." "That's exactly what discrimination is," Jennifer started crying. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I made a mistake." "This wasn't a mistake," Margaret said firmly. "A mistake is forgetting to bring someone their drink. A mistake is spilling something accidentally. What you did was intentional and repeated. You made choices about how to treat that passenger. You chose to be dismissive and rude." Jennifer's representative spoke up. "My client acknowledges that her behavior was inappropriate. She's willing to undergo additional training. She's willing to accept a suspension without pay. She wants to do better." Margaret shook her head. I'm afraid it's beyond that. This is Jennifer's third complaint for similar behavior in 18 months. She was already given warnings and training. She was given chances to improve. She didn't change. In fact, this incident is worse than the previous ones. What are you saying? The representative asked, though he clearly knew. I'm saying that Jennifer Collins' employment with this airline is terminated, effective immediately. The decision is final, Jennifer gasped. Please don't fire me. I need this job. I have bills to pay. I have rent. Please. You should have thought about that before you mistreated a passenger, Patricia said. Her voice was not unkind, but it was firm. I warned you after the last complaint. I told you that your behavior needed to change. You promised me it would, but it didn't. I'll do better, Jennifer begged. I promise. Just give me one more chance. We gave you chances, Margaret said. This is your consequence. You'll receive your final paycheck and any accrued vacation time. Your health insurance will continue for 30 days. After that, you're on your own. Jennifer put her head in her hands and sobbed. Her representative rubbed her shoulder but said nothing. There was nothing to say. The evidence was overwhelming. This meeting is concluded, Margaret said. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings from your locker. Please surrender any airline property you have. Your access to all airline facilities is revoked. Jennifer stood up shakily. She walked out with the security officer still crying. Her representative followed, carrying his folder of useless documents. There had been nothing he could do to save her job. Patricia stayed behind with Margaret. That was hard to watch, Patricia said. But it was the right decision. I know, Margaret said. But this isn't over. We still need to make things right with the passenger she hurt. At that exact moment, across town, the passenger was checking his email. He had just finished a successful conference. His speech had been well received. Several companies wanted to meet with him about partnerships. It had been a good 2 days, but he was ready to go home. He was tired of traveling, tired of hotels, tired of being recognized everywhere he went. He just wanted to be in his own home with his own things. He scrolled through his emails. Most were work-related. Meetings to schedule, contracts to review, updates from his team. Then he saw an email with an unfamiliar sender name. The subject line read, Personal message, Flight 847. He opened it carefully. It was from Margaret in Human Resources at the airline. The message was brief and professional. Dear Sir, we would like to request a phone conversation with you at your earliest convenience regarding your recent experience on Flight 847. Our CEO would like to speak with you personally. We understand you are busy, and this request is entirely optional. If you prefer not to engage with us, we completely understand. However, we hope you will give us the opportunity to discuss what happened. The email included a direct phone number and several time options for a call. The passenger sat back in his chair, so the airline had found out. Someone must have complained. He felt a mix of emotions. Part of him was glad that someone had spoken up. Part of him was tired of the whole situation. Did he really want to spend time talking to the airline about this? But curiosity won out. He wanted to know what they would say. He replied to the email, suggesting a time for the call the next day. Then he closed his laptop and went to bed. The next morning, his phone rang at the scheduled time. He answered it. Good morning, said a man's voice. This is Robert Chen, CEO of the airline. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak with me. Good morning, the passenger replied. He kept his voice neutral. I want to start by offering you my sincerest apology, the CEO said. What happened to you on Flight 847 was completely unacceptable. I've reviewed the security footage. I've read the witness statements. There is no excuse for how you were treated. You deserved respect and dignity, and our employee failed to provide that. I failed to create an environment where that couldn't happen. I'm truly sorry. The passenger was quiet for a moment. He hadn't expected such a direct apology. Usually companies made excuses or blamed misunderstandings. Thank you for saying that, he finally said. I want you to know what we've done in response, the CEO continued. The employee who treated you poorly has been terminated. This was her third complaint for similar behavior, which I'm ashamed to say we didn't handle adequately before. We've also implemented several policy changes. The CEO explained the new mandatory bias training. He described the improved complaint review process. He mentioned the diversity and inclusion officer being added to the leadership team. He outlined the metrics they would use to track progress. These changes will happen whether or not you accept them, the CEO said. This isn't about protecting the company's image. This is about doing what's right. What happened to you should never happen to anyone. The passenger listened carefully. The CEO sounded genuine. His actions seemed thorough, but the passenger wanted to dig deeper. "Can I ask you something?" the passenger said. "Of course, anything." "Why did those previous complaints not result in stronger action? Why did it take 5 complaints and video evidence for you to actually do something?" The CEO paused. "That's a fair question, and it's one I've been asking myself. The truth is, we didn't take the early complaints seriously enough. We gave warnings and training, but we didn't follow up properly. We didn't recognize a pattern. We failed, and I take responsibility for that failure." "What will you do differently now?" the passenger asked. "We're reviewing every discrimination complaint we've received in the last 5 years, the CEO said. "We're looking for patterns we missed. We're reaching out to passengers who complain to apologize and explain what we're doing. We're holding ourselves accountable." The passenger nodded even though the CEO couldn't see him. "You know," he said quietly, "I've experienced this kind of treatment many times in my life. Most companies just apologize and move on. They don't actually change anything. How do I know you're different?" "You don't," the CEO admitted. "Not yet. But I'd like to prove it to you. Would you be willing to meet with me in person? And perhaps to advise us on our diversity and inclusion initiatives? I'm not asking you to do free labor. We would compensate you appropriately for your time. But I think your perspective would be invaluable." The passenger thought about it. He was busy. He didn't need the airline's money. He didn't owe them anything. But he thought about all the other passengers who might face discrimination. If he could help prevent that, maybe it was worth his time. "I'll consider it," he said. "Send me more details about what you have in mind." "I will," the CEO said. "And sir, one more thing. I'm sending you a formal letter of apology via courier. It should arrive today. I wanted you to have something in writing as well as this conversation." "Thank you," the passenger said. "I appreciate you taking this seriously." "It's the least I can do," the CEO said. "Again, I'm truly sorry for what happened. You deserved better from us." They ended the call. The passenger sat in his hotel room thinking about the conversation. He was surprised by how genuine the CEO seemed, how thorough the response had been, how quickly they had acted. Later that day, a courier arrived at his hotel with a large envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter from the CEO on official airline letterhead. The apology was personal and sincere. It didn't sound like it had been written by lawyers. It sounded like it had been written by a human being who was genuinely sorry. Also in the envelope was information about the policy changes. Detailed plans for training programs, a timeline for implementation, contact information if he wanted to discuss the advisory role. The passenger read everything carefully. Then he made a decision. He called his assistant. "Set up a meeting with the airline CEO for next month," he said. "I want to hear more about their diversity initiatives, and I might be willing to help them." "Really?" his assistant asked, surprised. "After what happened?" "Yes," the passenger said, "because they're actually doing something about it. They're not just apologizing. They're changing, and maybe I can help make sure those changes are real and lasting." Over the next few weeks, news of the incident began to spread within the airline. Not to the public, thankfully. But internally, it became a major talking point. At every training session, the incident was discussed as a cautionary example. At every team meeting, managers emphasized the importance of treating all passengers equally. Some employees were angry that Jennifer had been fired. They thought it was too harsh, but most understood. Most had seen or heard about similar incidents, and were glad the airline was finally taking a strong stand. The 3 passengers who had filed complaints received personal phone calls from the CEO. He thanked them for their courage in speaking up. He explained what actions had been taken. He asked for their feedback on the new policies. The elderly woman told the CEO, "I've seen a lot of discrimination in my 72 years. I'm glad to see a company actually doing something about it for once. Keep your promises and maybe things will actually change." The businessman who had confronted Jennifer said, "I fly a lot for work. I'll be watching to see if your airline lives up to these commitments. If you do, I'll recommend you to my colleagues. If you don't, I'll make sure everyone knows that too." The CEO accepted both comments graciously. He knew the airline was being watched now. They had to follow through on their promises. A month later, the passenger met with the CEO in person. They sat in a conference room at the airline's headquarters. The CEO had assembled his leadership team, including the new diversity and inclusion officer. The passenger spent 3 hours with them. He shared his experiences of discrimination in travel and business. He offered suggestions for improving training programs. He recommended external consultants who specialized in bias education. He challenged them to think differently about diversity and inclusion. It's not enough to just train people not to be racist, he said. You need to actively create a culture of inclusion. You need diverse hiring. You need diverse leadership. You need to listen to voices that have been marginalized. The airline leaders took notes furiously. They asked questions. They listened carefully. By the end of the meeting, they had a much clearer vision of what needed to change. Will you consider joining our advisory board? The CEO asked. Just a few meetings a year. We would value your ongoing input. The passenger thought about it. Then he nodded. Yes, but on one condition. What's that? Everything you do, every policy you implement, every training program you create, you measure its impact. You track whether things are actually getting better. You collect data on complaints, on employee diversity, on passenger experiences, and you share that data publicly. Hold yourself accountable. Agreed, the CEO said immediately. We'll publish an annual diversity report starting next year. They shook hands. The passenger left the airline headquarters feeling something he hadn't expected to feel. Hope. 6 months later, the airline published its first diversity and inclusion report. It was detailed and honest. It acknowledged past failures. It outlined current initiatives. It showed early metrics of improvement. Discrimination complaints were down. Employee diversity was up. Passenger satisfaction scores were improving. The report was shared company-wide. Every employee received a copy. At the end of the report was a case study. It didn't name names, but it told the story of Flight 847. What happened? How the airline responded? What changed as a result? The final paragraph read, "We failed a passenger who deserved our respect. We are committed to ensuring that failure leads to lasting change. We are not perfect, but we are improving, and we will continue to improve every single day." David, the flight attendant who had witnessed Jennifer's behavior, read the report during his break. He felt proud to work for an airline that was actually trying to change. He had completed the new bias training and found it genuinely helpful. It had made him think about his own assumptions and behaviors. The passenger was on another flight when the report was published. This time he was flying with a different airline for work, but he received a copy of the report via email. He read it on his laptop during the flight. When he finished reading, he smiled. They had kept their promises. They were doing the work. They were changing. He pulled out his phone and sent an email to the CEO. "Read the report. Impressive progress. Keep going," the CEO replied within an hour. "Thank you. We couldn't have done it without your guidance. Looking forward to the next advisory board meeting." The passenger put away his phone and looked out the window. The sky was clear and blue. Far below, he could see cities and farms and rivers. He thought about Jennifer and wondered what she was doing now. He hoped she had learned something from the experience. He hoped she had grown. He didn't hate her. He just wished she had treated him like a human being. He thought about all the other people who experienced discrimination every day. In airplanes, in restaurants, in stores, in offices. People who were judged by their appearance instead of their character. People who were made to feel like they didn't belong. One airline changing its policies wouldn't fix everything. But it was a start. And if one company could change, maybe others would follow. Maybe slowly, things would get better. The flight attendant on this flight approached him with a smile. "Can I get you anything, sir?" "Just some water, please," he said. "Of course," she said warmly. She brought him a glass of ice water with a slice of lemon. She set it down gently on his tray table. "Let me know if you need anything else." "Thank you," he said. And he meant it. It was a small interaction, a simple gesture of basic respect. But after everything that had happened, it felt significant. It felt like proof that people could do better. That companies could do better. That change was possible. The passenger took a sip of water and went back to his work. He had emails to answer, meetings to prepare for, a business to run. Life continued as it always did. But somewhere, because of what happened on Flight 847, things were a little bit better. People were being trained to recognize their biases. Policies were being changed to protect passengers. Leaders were being held accountable. One person's experience of discrimination had become a catalyst for change. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't complete. But it was something. And sometimes something is enough to give people hope.